Wow, yeah, I literally just closed the door to my room and the dog didn't get out. Okay, this is very cool. Hi everybody. It is Friday afternoon. It is 3 p.m. Wow, this is like coming back to the stream. It's like the first time I've ever been early to a reading stream, because the one of the running jokes I have personally is okay, let's get out the loading screen first of all. So, as I was gonna say, okay, before I go on and describing like everything, one of the running jokes I have with myself is that for writing streams, I always get so sleepy because I assume I can just slack it off and you know what, read simply. And okay, my dog is just there. Okay, hi everybody as well. What I meant to say was, I am never early. I hear water outside. I'm sorry, I got distracted. Hello everybody. Okay, so what I meant to say was okay, the running joke is I always seem to be late to my reading streams because reading streams are something low energy, right? Something I can do and then just kind of how do you say, I can kind of do, and then after that I can just kind of, you know, just take it easy and just have a chill time while you guys think about what I've just read. Sometimes, however, though, sometimes there's a dripping sound outside my window. It's distracting me immensely. So what I meant to say was today was one of those streams, so after I come back, it's even more impressive that I did not slack off. I felt like slacking off because I don't know whether you guys saw me just now in the Discord. I was playing Battlefield 1. Next week we'll stream that. Don't worry. And bitch, Akate, I'm going to beat the crap out of you, man. If no texting while driving, I'm gonna beat the poop out and poop stockings out of you. Okay, anyway, yeah, I'm just surprised I managed to start the stream early. It means I'm feeling good shape. I'm in good shape. I'm in good spirits. Yes, you can hear me clapping my hands through this face towel. It's a face towel, not anything else. So, what are we doing today? Well, today is gonna be lower energy than usual. Fuck, I'm still at the office. You still at the office? Oh no. Soon I'll be stuck in an office too. Mercenary working on office. 4:32. Well, depends on what I'm how long my the reading today. Usually it'll just take around an hour, right? An hour and a half, then after that I'll just end it. So don't worry about it. You don't have to go. Just focus on your job, okay, mate? Job first before VTuber. Also, broadcasting channel, hello. Sorry. I'm getting off topic. I want to bring up very quickly what we're doing today. Today, imagine watching your favorite streamer in the office. Oh, dude, let's put you on speakers. No. Okay, you know what? If you're gonna put me on speakers, I'm gonna do this. Hi, everybody. I'm a streamer from Malaysia. My name is Eiten Dylus. My voice usually is much lower than this, but I like to put this up. No. We're not doing that. This is a chill stream, okay? There's no time for me to raise my voice to a slightly effeminate level that make me the thing is about all this, right? The voice gimmick thing. I just talk normally because I'm very sure is who this guy. I wonder who. If you don't know who I am, go look up Eiten Dylus. I am a mercenary. My friend. Huh? Friend? Friend. Yes, friend. Nothing else, nothing more. Friend. Anyway, yes, I'm getting distracted. It's a chill stream, but I do have an objective. As usual, we're doing a reading stream, and today, sit back and relax because we're covering Ender's Game again. We are, as I remember the last time, we stopped at chapter 7, the introduction to chapter 7. So, yeah, chapter 7 will be there, and we're doing chapter 7, and after that we're just gonna continue on until an hour and a half has passed. So yes, let me see what else. Okay, so Ender's Game, what is it about? It's a pretty well-known classic. I'm gonna put the guide for this thing up here. Okay, there you go. So, welcome to the reading stream. If you're new to the reading stream and you're not sure what this is all about, the reading stream is as goes above. I read the selected story uninterrupted for a chapter. After the chapter ends, I'll take a 5 minutes break or less or more to regain breath, and then that's it. Literally, I wrote like something. I every time I look at this instruction, I get kind of amazed because I just stare at it and realize I wrote instructions for something I could just literally memorize off the top of my head and what everyone feels like is common sense. So yeah, I'm really stupid. Anyway, let's see. Ender's Game. What is it about? It's about Ender Wiggin, a child prodigy who is sent into battle school to train as a commander to fight a alien race called the Formics. And yes, and things go very wrong from there. I mean, things go right, but for him personally, it goes really wrong. So we're gonna read Salamander, and I have picked. Last time I picked a what's it called? Last time I picked a. How do you say it already? I picked some ambient alien noises. So what I'm doing today is gonna be a bit more simpler. Hold on, my eyes closed again. I'm always sensitive about my eyes being closed. I'm Asian, yes, I can make that joke, but I might have meant this my model. It sometimes bugs out, don't worry. Okay, so for today's ambient music, we are going with Ace Combat. Ace Combat stuff is always nice, so I'm just gonna turn this off real quick and let's get right into it. There we go. This is a very nice calling. In fact, this is what I work with sometimes, so yeah, give me a second. I'll get my clock ready for like the 5 minutes break so I don't have to overextend myself. Also, do note I am supposed to drink quite a fair bit, so my my bottle is not anywhere near me, so I might have to walk out to get the drink. Okay, enough about that. Let's get to reading, shall we? All right. Okay, I gotta adjust my monitor. Okay, we are at chapter 7, Salamander. Sorry, my mother just passed out for a bit. Okay, so here we go. Isn't it nice to know that Ender can do the impossible? The player's death have always been sickening. I've always thought the Giant's Drink was the most perverted part of the whole mind game. But going for the eye like that? This is the one we want to put in command of our fleet? Hold on, sorry, I think I got the characters confused. What matters is that he won the game that couldn't be won. I suppose you move him now. We are waiting to see how he handled the thing with Bernard. He handled it perfectly. So as soon as he can cope with the situation, you move him to one he can't cope with. Doesn't he get any rest? He'll have a month or two, maybe 3. With his launch group, that is really quite a long time in a child's life. Does it ever seem to you that these boys aren't children? I look at what they do, the way they talk, and they don't seem like little kids. They're the most brilliant children in the world, each in his own way. But shouldn't they still act like children? They aren't normal. They act like history, Napoleon and Wellington, Kaiser and Brutus. We're trying to save the world, not heal the wounded heart. They're too compassionate. General Levy has no pity for anyone. All the videos say so. But don't hurt this boy. You're joking? I mean, don't hurt him more than you have to. Ally sat across from Ender at dinner. I finally figured out how you sent that message, using Bernard's name. Me? Asked Ender. Come on, who else? It sure wasn't Bernard. And Shen isn't too hot on the computer. And I know it wasn't me. Who else? Doesn't matter. I figured out how to fake a new student entry. You just created a student named Bernard. Blank. BERNARD space. So the computer didn't kick it out as a repeat of another student. Sounds like that might work, said Ender. Okay. It does work. But you did that practically on the first day. Or somebody. Maybe Dab did it to keep Bernard from getting too much control. I found something else. I can't do it with your name. Oh? Anything with Ender in it gets kicked out. I can't get inside your files at all. You made your own security system. Maybe? Ally grinned. I just got in and trashed somebody's files. He's right behind me on cracking the system. I need protection, Ender. I need your system. If I give you my system, you'll know how I do it and you'll get in and trash me. You say me? Ally asked. The sweetest friend you got. Ender laughed. I'll set up a system for you. Now? Can I finish eating? You never finish eating. It was true. Ender's tray always had food on it after a meal. Ender looked at the plate and decided he was true. Let's go then. When they got to the barracks, Ender squatted down by his bed and said, Get your desk and bring it over here. I'll show you how. But when Ally brought his desk to Ender's bed, Ender was just sitting there, his locker still closed. What up? Asked Ally. In answer, Ender palmed his locker. Unauthorized access attempt, it said. It didn't open. Somebody done a dance on your head, mama, Ally said. Somebody eated your face. You sure you want my security system now? Ender got up and walked away from his bed. Ender, said Ally. Ender turned around. Ally was holding a little piece of paper. What is it? Ally looked up at him. Don't you know? This was on your bed. You must have sat on it. Ender took it from him. Ender Wigan, assigned Salamander Army, Commander Bonzo Madrid, effective immediately. Code green brown, no possessions transferred. You're smart, Ender, but you don't do the battle room any better than me. Ender shook his head. It was the stupidest thing he could think of, to promote him now. Nobody got promoted before they were 8 years old. Ender wasn't even 7 yet. And launches usually move into the armies together, with most armies getting a new kit at the same time. There were no transfer slips on any of the other bits. Just when things were finally coming together, just when Bernard was getting along with everybody, even Ender, just when Ender was beginning to make a real friend of Ally, just when his life was finally getting livable, Ender reached down to pull Ally out from the bed. Salamander armies in contention anyway, Ally said. Ender was so angry at the unfairness of the transfer that tears were coming to his eyes. Mustn't cry, he told himself. Ally saw the tears but had the grace not to say so. They're farheads, Ender. They won't even let you take anything you owned. Ender grinned and didn't cry after all. Think I should strip and go naked? Ally laughed too. On impulse, Ender hugged him tight, almost as if he were Valentine. He even thought of Valentine and then wanted to go home. I don't want to go, he said. Ally hugged him back. I understand them, Ender. You are the best of us. Maybe they in a hurry to teach you everything. They don't want to teach me everything, Ender said. I wanted to learn what it was like to have a friend. Ally nodded soberly. Always my friend. Always the best of my friends, he said. Then he grinned. Go slice up the buggers. Yeah, smiled back. Ender smiled back. Ally suddenly kissed Ender on the cheek and whispered in his ear, Salam. Then, red-faced, he turned away and walked to his own bed at the back of the barracks. Ender guessed that the kiss and the word were somehow forbidden. A suppressed religion, perhaps. Or maybe the word had some private and powerful meaning for Ally alone. Whatever it meant to Ally, Ender knew it was sacred. That he had uncovered himself for Ender, as once Ender's mother had done when he was very young, before they put the monitor in his neck, and she had put her hands on his head when she thought he was asleep, and prayed over him. Ender had never spoken of that to anyone, not even to Mother, but had kept it as a memory of holiness, of how his mother loved him when she thought that no one, not even he, could see or hear. That was what Ally had given him, a gift so sacred that even Ender could not be allowed to understand what it meant. After such a thing, nothing could be. Ally reached his bed and turned round to see Ender's. Their eyes held for only a moment, locked in understanding. Then Ender left. There would be no green brown in this part of the school. He would have to pick up the colors in one of the public areas. The others would be finished with dinner very soon. He didn't want to go near the mess hall. The game room would nearly be empty. None of the games appealed to him the way he felt now. So he went to the bank of public desks at the back of the room and signed on to his own private game. He went quickly to Fairyland. The giant was dead when he arrived now. He had to climb carefully down the table, jump to the leg of the giant's overturned chair, and then make the drop to the ground. For a while there had been rats gnawing at the giant's body, but Ender had killed one with a pin from the giant's ragged shirt, and they had left him alone after that. The giant's corpse had essentially finished its decay. What could be torn by the small scavengers were torn. The maggots had done their work on the organs. Now it was a desiccated mummy, hollowed out, teeth in a rigid grin, eyes empty, and fingers curled. Ender remembered burrowing through the eye when it had been alive and malicious and intelligent. Angry and frustrated as he was, Ender wished to do such violence again. But the giant had become part of the landscape now, and so there could be no rage against him. Ender had always gone over to the bridge to the castle of the Queen of Hearts, where there were games for him. But none of those appealed to him now. He went around the giant's corpse and followed the brook upstream, where it emerged from the forest. There was a playground there, slides and monkey bars, teeter-totters and merry-go-rounds, and a dozen children laughing as they played. Ender came and found that in the game he had become a child, though usually his figure in the games was adult. In fact, he was smaller than the other children. He got in line for the slide. The other children ignored him. He climbed up to the top, watched the boy before him whirl down the long spiral to the ground. Then he sat and began to slide. He had not slid for a moment when he fell right through the slide and landed on the ground under the ladder. The slide would not hold him. Neither would the monkey bars. He would climb a ways, but then at random a bar seemed to be insubstantial and he fell. He could sit on the seesaw until he rose to the apex, then fell. When the merry-go-round went fast, he could not hold on to any of the bars and centrifugal force hurled him off. And the other children? Their laugh was raucous, offensive. They circled around him and pointed and laughed for many seconds before they went back to play. To their play. Ender wanted to hit them, to throw them in the brook. Instead, he walked into the forest. He found a path which soon became an ancient brick road, much overgrown with weeds but still usable. There were hints of possible games off to either sides, but Ender followed none of them. He wanted to see where the path led. It led to a clearing with a well in the middle and a sign that said, "Drink, traveler." Ender went forward and looked at the well. And almost at once he heard a snarl. Out of the woods emerged a dozen slavering wolves with human faces. Ender recognized them. They were the children from the playground. Only now their teeth could tear. Ender, weaponless, was quickly devoured. His next figure appeared as usual in the same spot and was eaten again, though Ender tried to climb down the well. His next appearance, though, was at the playground. Again, the children laughed at him. "Oh, hey, Purple Fox. Hello. We're reading Ender's game right now. We're halfway through chapter 7. How are you doing?" Let me just continue on where I left off. I'll address you a bit more after this. The next appearance, though, was at the playground. Again, the children laughed at him. Laugh all you like, Ender thought. I know what you are. Hold on, someone just picked me. I know what you are. He pushed one of them. She followed him, angry. Ender led her up to the slide. Of course he fell through, but this time, following so closely behind him, she also fell through. When she hit the ground, she turned into a wolf and lay there, dead or stunned. One by one, Ender led each of the others into a trap. But before he had finished off the last of them, the wolves began reviving and were no longer children. Ender was torn apart again. Just had your breakfast. Wow, that's pretty late. But you know what? I don't judge people like that. What'd you eat? I'll get to you after this. This time, shaking and sweating, Ender found his figure revive on the giant's table. I should quit, he told himself. I should go to my new army. But instead he made his figure drop down from the table and walk around the giant's body to the playground. This time, as soon as a child hit the ground and turned into a wolf, Ender dragged the body to the brook and pulled it in. Each time the body sizzled as though the water were acid. The wolf was consumed, and a dark cloud of smoke arose and drifted away. The children were easily dispatched, though they began following him in twos and threes at the end. Ender found no wolves waiting for him in the clearing, and he lowered himself into the well on the bucket rope. The light in the cavern was dim, but he could see piles of jewels. He passed them by, noting that, behind him, eyes glinted among the gems. A table covered with food did not interest him. He passed through a group of cages hanging from the ceiling of the cave, each containing some exotic, friendly-looking creature. I'll play with you later, Ender thought. At last he came to a door with these words in glowing emeralds. The end of the world. Hold out. Smoke? Cloud? It's mist? It is written smoke, so I believe it's just like, you know, like how acid reacts when you dump something with it and something melts. Yeah, that kind of reaction. Oh, fried rice and nuggies. Oh, that actually sounds very simple and nice. I would like to have that someday. Alright, he did not hesitate. He opened the door and stepped through. He stood on a small ledge, high on a cliff overlooking a terrain of bright and deep green forests with dashes of autumn color and patches here and there of cleared land, with ox-drawn yeah, I make weird noises. With ox-drawn plows and small villages, a castle on a rise in the distance, and clouds riding on currents on air below him. Above him, the sky was the ceiling of a vast cavern, with crystal dangling and bright stalactites. The door closed behind him. Ender studied the scene intently. With the beauty of it, he cared less for survival than usual. He cared little, at the moment, what the game of this place might be. He had found it, and seeing it was his own reward. And so, with no thought of consequences, he jumped from the ledge. Now he plummeted downwards towards a roiling river and savage rocks, but a cloud came between him and the ground as he fell, and caught him and carried him away. It took him to the tower of the castle, and through the open window, bearing him in. There it left him, in a room with no apparent door in the floor or ceiling, and the room's windows looking out over a certainly fatal fall. A moment ago, he had thrown himself from a ledge carelessly. This time, he hesitated. The small rock before the fire unraveled itself into a long, slender serpent with wicked teeth. "I am your only escape," it said. "Death is your only escape." Ender looked around the room for a weapon when suddenly the screen went dark. Words flashed around the rim of the desk. "Report to the commander immediately. You are late. Green, brown." Furious, Ender snapped off the desk and went to the color wall, where he found the ribbon of green, brown, touched it, and followed it as it lit up before him. The dark green, light green, and the brown of the ribbon reminded him of the early Autumn Kingdom he had found in the game. I must go back there, he told himself. The serpent is a long trek. I can let myself down from the tower and find my way through that place. Perhaps it's called the end of the world because it's the end of the games. Because I can go to one of the villages and become one of the little boys working there and playing there. With nothing to kill and nothing to kill me. Just living there. As soon as he thought of it though, he could not imagine what just living might actually be. He had never done it in his life, but he wanted to do it anyway. Armies were larger than launch groups, and the army barracks was larger too. It was long and narrow with bunks on both sides, so long in fact that you could see the curvature of the floor as the far end bent upwards, part of the wheel at the battle school. Ender stood at the door. A few boys near the door glanced at him, but they were older, and it seemed as though they hadn't even seen him. They went on with their conversations, lying and leaning on bunks. They were discussing battles, of course. The older boys always did, and they were all much larger than Ender. The 10 and 11-year-olds towered over him. Even the youngest were 8, and Ender was not large for his age. He tried to see which of the boys was the commander, but most were somewhere between battle dress and what the soldiers always called their sleep uniform, skin from head to toe. Many of them had desks out, but few were studying. Ender stepped into the room. The moment he did, he was noticed. "What do you want?" demanded the boy who had the upper bunk by the door. He was the largest of them. Ender had noticed him before, a young giant who had whiskers growing raggedly on his chin. "You're not a salamander?" "I'm supposed to be, I think," Ender said. Green, brown, right?" "I was transferred." He showed the boy, obviously the door guard, his paper. The door guard reached for it. Ender withdrew it just out of reach. "I'm supposed to give it to Bonzo Madrid?" Now another boy joined the conversation, a smaller boy, but still larger than Ender. Not Benzo Pisshead, Bonzo. The name's Spanish, Bonzo Madrid. "Aquí nosotros hablamos español, señor Gran Fedor." "You must be Bonzo then?" Ender asked, pronouncing his name correctly. "No, just a brilliant and talented polyglot. Petra Arcanian, the only girl in Salamander Army, with more balls than anyone else in the room." "Mother Petra, she talking," said one of the boys. She talking. Another one chimed in. Shit talking. Quite a few laughed. "Just between you and me," Petra said, "if they gave the battle school an enema, they'll stick it in green, brown." Ender despaired. He already had nothing going for him. Grossly undertrained, small, inexperienced, doomed to be resented for early advancement. And now, by chance, he had made exactly the wrong friend, an outcast in the Salamander Army, and she had just linked him with her in the minds of the rest of the army. A good day's work. For a moment, as Ender looked around at the laughing, jeering faces, he imagined their bodies covered with hair, their teeth pointed for tearing. Am I the only human being in this place? Are all the others animals waiting to be only to devour? Then he remembered Ally. In every army, surely, there was at least one worth knowing. Suddenly, though no one said to be quiet, the laughter stopped and the group fell silent. Ender turned to the door. A boy stood there, tall and slender, with beautiful black eyes and slender lips that hinted at refinement. "I will follow such beauty," said something inside Ender. "I would see as those eyes see." "Who are you?" asked the boy quietly. "Ender Wiggins, sir," Ender said. "Reassigned from launch to Salamander Army." He held out the orders. The boy took the paper in a swift, sure movement, without touching Ender's hand. "How old are you, Wiggin?" he asked. "Almost 7. Still quietly, he said, "I asked how old you are, not how old you almost are. I am 6 years, 9 months, and 12 days old." "How long have you been working in the battle room?" "A few months now. My aim is better." "Any training in battle maneuvers? Have you ever been part of a toon? Have you ever carried out a joint exercise?" Ender had never heard of such things. He shook his head. Madrid looked at him steadily. "I see. As you will quickly learn, the officers in command of this school, most notably Major Anderson, who runs the game, are fond of playing tricks. Salamander Army is just beginning to emerge from indecent obscurity. We have won 12 of our last 20 games. We have surprised Rat, and Scorpion, and Hound. And we are ready to play for leadership in the game. So of course I am given such a useless, untrained, hopeless specimen of underdevelopment as yourself." Petra said quietly, "He isn't glad to meet you." "Shut up, Arcanian," Madrid said. "To one trial we now add another. But whatever our obstacles our officers choose to fling in our path, we are still Salamander!" cried the soldiers in one voice. Instinctively, Ender's perception of these events changed. It was a pattern, a ritual. Madrid was not trying to hurt him, merely taking control of a surprise event and using it to strengthen his control of his army. We are the fire that will consume them, belly and bowel, head and heart. Many flames of us, but one fire. Salamander, they cried again. Even this one will not weaken us. For a moment, Ender allowed himself to hope. I'll work hard and learn quickly, he said. I didn't give you permission to speak, Madrid answered. I intend to trade you away as quickly as I can. I'll probably have to give up someone valuable along with you. But as small as you are worse than useless. One more frozen, inevitably, in every battle. That's all you are. We're now at the point where every frozen soldier makes a difference in the standings. Nothing personal, Wiggins, but I'm sure you can get your training at someone else's expense. He's all heart, Petra said. Madrid stepped closer to the girl and slapped across her face with the back of his hands. It made little sound, for only his fingernails had hit her, but there were bright red marks, 4 of them, on her cheek, and little pricks of blood marked where the tips of his fingernails had struck. Here are your instructions, Wiggin. I expect that it is the last time I'll need to speak to you. You will stay out of the way when training in the battle room. You have to be there, of course, but you will not belong to any tune, and you will not take part in any maneuvers. When we are called to battle, you will dress quickly and present yourself at the gate with everyone else. But you will not pass through the gate until 4 full minutes after the beginning of the game, and then you will remain at the gate with your weapon undrawn and unfired until such time as the game ends. Ender nodded. So he was to be nothing. He hoped the trade happened soon. He also noticed that Petra did not so much as cry out in pain or touch her cheek, though one spot of blood had beaded and run, making a streak down her jaw. Outcast she may be, but since Bonzo Madrid was not going to be Ender's friend, no matter what, he might as well make friends with Petra. He was assigned a bunk at the far end of the room, the upper bunk, so that when he lay on his bed he couldn't even see the door. The curve of the seating blocked it. There were other boys near him, tired-looking boys, sullen, the one least valued. They had nothing of welcome to say to Ender. Ender tried to palm his locker open, but nothing happened. Then he realized the lockers were not secure. All 4 of them had rings to them to pull them open. Nothing would be private then, now that he was in an army. There was a uniform in the locker, not the pale green of the launchies, but the orange trimmed dark green of Salamander Army. It did not fit well, but then they had probably never had to provide such a uniform for a boy so young. He was starting to take it off when he noticed Petra walking down the aisle towards his bed. He slid off the bunk and stood on the floor to greet her. Relax, she said. I'm not an officer. You're a tool leader, aren't you? Someone nearby snickered. Whatever gave you that idea, Wiggin? You have a bunk in the front. I bunk in the front because I'm the best sharpshooter in Salamander Army, and because Bonzo is afraid I'll start a revolution if the tool leaders don't keep an eye on me. As if I could start anything with boys like these. She indicated the sullen-faced boys on the nearby bunks. What she was trying to do, make it worse as it already was? Everyone's better than I am, Ender said, trying to disassociate himself from her contempt for the boys who would, after all, be his near bunkmates. I'm a girl, she said, and you're a peasant of a 6-year-old. We have so much in common. Why don't we be friends? I won't do your desk work for you, he said. In a moment she realized it was a joke. Ha! Ha! She said. It's all so military when you're in the game. School for us isn't like it is for launchies. History and strategy and tactics and buggers and maths and stars. Things you'll need as a pilot or a commander. You'll see. So you're my friend? Do I get a prize? Ender asked. He was intimidating her swaggering way of speaking, as if she cared about nothing. Bonzo isn't going to let you practice. He's going to make you take your desk to the battle room and study. He's right in a way. He don't want a totally untrained little kid to screw up his precision maneuvers. She lapsed into Giria, a slangy talk that imitated the pidgin English of uneducated people. Bonzo, he precise, he's so careful, he piss on a plate and never splash. Ender grinned. The battle room is open at all the time. If you want, I'll take you in the off hours and show you some of the things I know. I'm not a great soldier, but I'm pretty good, and I sure know more than you. If you want, Ender said, starting tomorrow morning after breakfast. What if somebody's using the room? We always went right after breakfast in my lunch. No problem. There are really 9 battle rooms. I never heard of the others. They all have the same entrance. The whole center of the battle school, the hub of the wheel, is battle rooms. Oh, sorry. They don't rotate with the rest of the students. That's how they do the nullo, the no gravity. It just holds still. No spin, no down. But they can set it up so that any one of the room is at the battle room entrance of the corridor that we all use. Once you're inside, they move it along and another battle room's in position. Oh. Like I said, right after breakfast. Right, Ender said. She started to walk away. Petra, he said. She turned back. Thanks. She said nothing, just turned around again and walked down the aisle. Ender climbed back up on his bunk and finished taking off his uniform. He lay naked on his bed, doodling with his new desk, trying to decide if they had done anything to his access code. Sure enough, they had wiped out his security system. He couldn't own anything here, not even his desk. The lights dimmed a little, getting toward bedtime. Ender didn't know which bathroom to use. Go out the left door, said the boy on the next bunk. We share it with a rat, condor, and squirrel. Wow, I said right. I mean to talk about that. Ender thanked him and started to walk on past. Hey, said the boy, you can't go out like that. You can't go like that. Uniforms at all times out of this room. Even going to the toilet. Especially. And you're forbidden to speak to anyone from any other army. At meals or in the toilet. You can get away with it sometimes in the game room, and of course whenever a teacher tells you to. But if Bonzo catches you, you're dead. Eh? Thanks. And Bonzo get mad if you skinned by Petra. She was naked when I came in, wasn't she? She do what she likes. But you keep your clothes on. Bonzo's orders. That was stupid. Petra still looked like the boy. It was a stupid rule. It set it apart. Made it different. Split the army. Stupid. Stupid. How did Bonzo get to be a commander if he didn't know better than that? Ally would be a better commander than Bonzo. He knew how to bring a group together. I know how to bring a group together too, thought Ender. Maybe I'll be a commander someday. In the bathroom, he was washing his hands when somebody spoke to him. Hey, they putting babies in salamander uniforms now. Ender didn't look, just dried off his hands. Hey, look! Salamander's getting babies now. Look at this. He can walk between my legs without touching my balls. Cause he got none, Dink. That's why, somebody answered. And as Ender left the room, he heard somebody else sing. It's Wigan. You know, the smartass launchy from the game room. He walked down the corridor smiling. He might be short, but they knew his name. From the game room, of course, so it meant nothing. But they'd see. He'd be a good soldier too. They all know his name soon enough. Not in Salamander Army, maybe, but soon enough. Alright, I'm gonna have to dip out for a little bit to get some water. My throat is feeling very dry, so I'll be right back. Yeah, I'm just gonna go grab my water. Where's my thing ready? Okay, I'll be right back. Give me a second, yeah? Sorry, I just need to drink. It's very important. Yeah. Hello everybody. I'm back. I'm really sorry. Like, if you like how do you say this right? I actually wonder how am I actually gonna start teaching in the future, like, because I want to be a teacher. Um I don't know how to say. I don't know. I don't really know how to do public speaking, especially when my voice burns out quite easily. So I don't know. Well, my floating thought right now is that I want to do some vocal classes, but I don't know. I don't know. I'll think about it. For now, I just feel like my voice is like very dried out. Like, you know, like the back of my throat is like dry, like sandpaper. You know how that feels? It's just, it's painful and very uncomfortable actually. It's not anyone's issue, but it's just usually how these reading streams go, and that's why I try to keep them as, I don't know how to, as quick as possible. No, just as short as possible, as much as I can read, because in that 1 hour and 30 minutes or like 2 hours, if I read a lot and talk a lot, my throat just feels dry for like hours on end, and it feels very painful. And this is different from normal talking because in normal talking, it's very casual, very short. This one, you'll be just reading endlessly on end. And yeah, it's kind of painful, but don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm doing fine. All right, let's continue on from where we left off. Got my tissues, the bookmark, because I keep damaging the book with my flipping. Petra was waiting in the corridor that led to the battle room. Oh, what the hell was that? Wait a minute, she said to Ender. Rabbit Army just went in, and it takes a few minutes to change to the next battle room. Ender sat down beside her. There's more to the battle room than just switching from one to the next, he said. For instance, why is there gravity in the corridor outside the room, just before we go in? Hold on. Petra closed her eyes. And if the battle rooms are really free-floating, what happens when one is connected? Why doesn't it start to move with the rotation of the school? Ender nodded. These are the mysteries, Petra said in a deep whisper. Do not pry into them. Terrible, terrible, terrible things happened to the last soldier he's tried. He was discovered hanging by his feet from the ceiling of the bathroom, with his head stuffed in the toilet. Of course she was joking, but the message was clear. So I'm not the first person to ask this question. You remember this, little boy? When she said little boy, it sounded friendly, not contemptuous. They never tell you any more truth than they have to. But any kids with brains know there has been some changes in science since the days of old Mesa Rackham and the Victoria's fleet. Obviously now we can control gravity. Turn it on and off, change the direction, maybe reflect it. I've thought of lots of neat things you could do with gravity weapons on gravity drives on starships, and think how starships could move near planets. Maybe tear big chunks of them by reflecting a planet's own gravity back on itself, only from another direction, and focus down to a smaller point. But they say nothing. Under understood more than she said. Manipulation of gravity was one thing. Deception by the officers was another. But the most important message was this: the adults are the enemy, not the other armies. They do not tell us the truth. Come, little boy, she said. The battle room is ready. Petra's hands are steady. The enemy is deadly. She giggled. Petra the poet, they call me. They also say you're crazy as a loon. Better believe it, baby butt. She had 10 target balls in the bag. Ender held on to her suit with one hand and the wall with the other, to steady her as she threw them hard in different directions. In null gravity, they bounced every which way. Let go of me, she said. She shoved off, spinning deliberately. With a few deft hand moves, she steadied herself, and began aiming carefully at ball after ball. When she shot one, its glow changed from white to red. Ender knew that the color change lasted less than 2 minutes. Only one ball had changed back to white when she got the last one. She rebounded accurately from a wall and came back at high speed towards Ender. He caught her and held her against her own rebounds. One of the first techniques they had taught him as a launchy. You're good, she said. None better. And you're gonna learn how to do it. Petra taught him to hold his arm straight, to aim with the whole arm. Something most soldiers don't realize is that the farther away your target is, the longer you have to hold the beam within about a 2 centimeter circle. It's the difference between 1/10 of a second and 1/2 of a second, but in battle that's a long time. A lot of soldiers think they miss when they were right on target, but they moved away too fast. So you can't use your gun like a sword. Swish, swish, slice them in half. You've got to aim. She used the ball catchers, the ball collar to bring the targets back, and then launched them slowly one by one. Ender fired at them. He missed every one. Good, she said. You don't have any bad habits. I don't have any good ones either, he pointed out. I'll give you those. They didn't accomplish much that first morning. Mostly talk. How to think while you were aiming. You've got to hold your own motion and your enemy's motion in your mind at the same time. You've got to hold your arm straight out and aim with your body, so in case your arm is frozen, you can still shoot. Learn where your trigger actually fires and ride the edge, so you don't have to pull so far each time you relax. Relax your body. Don't tense up. It makes you tremble. It was the only practice Ender got that day. During the army's drills in the afternoon, Ender was ordered to bring his desk and do his schoolwork. Sitting in a corner of the room, Bonzo had to bring all his soldiers to the battle room, but he didn't have to use them. Ender did not do his schoolwork, however. If he could not drill as a soldier, he could study Bonzo as a tactician. Salamander army was divided into the standard 4 toons of 10 soldiers each. Some commanders set up their toons so that A toon consisted of the best soldiers and D toon had the worst. Bonzo had mixed them so that each consisted of good soldiers and weaker ones. Ender, except that B toon only had 9 boys. Ender wondered who had been transferred to make room for him. It soon became plain that the leader of toon B was new. No wonder Bonzo was disgusted. He had lost a toon leader to get Ender. And Bonzo was right about another thing. Ender was not ready. All the practice time was spent working on maneuvers. Toons that couldn't see each other practiced performing precision operations together with exact timings. Toons practiced using each other to make sudden changes on directions without losing formations. All these soldiers took for granted skills that Ender didn't have. The ability to make a soft landing and absorb most of the shock, accurate flight, course adjustments using the frozen soldiers floating randomly through the room, rolls, spins, dodges, sliding along the walls, a very difficult maneuver and yet one of the most valuable, since the enemy couldn't get behind you. Even as Ender learned how much he did not know, he also saw things he could improve on. The well-rehearsed formations were a mistake. It allows the soldiers to obey shouted orders instantly, but it also meant they were predictable. Also, the individual soldiers were given little initiative. Once a pattern was set, they were to follow it through. There was no room for adjustment to what the enemy did against the formation. Ender studied Bonzo's formations like an enemy commander would, noting the ways to disrupt the formation. During free play that night, Ender asked Petra to practice with him. No, she said. I want to be a commander someday, so I've got to play the game room. It was a common belief that the teachers monitored the games and spotted potential commanders there. Ender doubted it though. Toon leaders had a better chance to show what they might do as a commander than any video player. But he didn't argue with Petra. The after breakfast practice was generous enough. Still, he had to practice, and he couldn't get practice alone except a few of the basic skills. Most of the hard things require partners or teams. If only he had Ally or Shen to practice with. Well, why shouldn't he practice with them? He had never heard of a soldier practicing with launchies, but there was no rule against it. It just wasn't done. Launchies were held in too much contempt. Well, Ender was still being treated like a launchie anyway. He needed someone to practice with. And in return, he could help them learn some of the things he saw the older boys doing. Hey, the great soldier returns, said Bernard. Ender stood in the doorway of his old barracks. He'd only been away for a day, but already it seemed like an alien place, and others of his launch group were strangers. Almost he turned around and left, but there was Ally, who made their friendship sacred. Ally was not a stranger. Ender made no effort to conceal how he was treated in Salamander Army. And they're right. I'm about as useful as a sneeze in a spacesuit. Ally laughed, and others launchies started to gather around. Ender proposed his bargain. Free play every day, working hard in the battle room under Ender's direction. They would learn things from the armies, from the battles Ender would see. He would get the practice he needed in developing soldier skills. We'll get ready together. A lot of the boys wanted to come too. Sure, Ender said. If you're coming to work. If you're just farting around, you're out. I don't have any time to waste. They didn't waste what's it called already? They didn't waste any time. Ender was clumsy, trying to describe what he had seen, working out ways to do it. By the time free play had ended, they had learned some things. They were tired, but they were getting the knack of a few techniques. Where were you? Asked Bonzo. Ender stood stiffly by his commander's bunks, practicing in the battle room. I heard you had some of your old launchy group with you. I couldn't practice alone. I won't have any soldiers in Salamander Army hanging around with launchies. You're a soldier now. Ender regarded him in silence. Did you hear me, Wiggin? Yes, sir. No more practicing with those little farts. May I speak with you privately? Asked Ender. It was a request that commanders were required to allow. Bonzo's face went angry, and he led Ender out into the corridor. Listen, Wiggin, I don't want you. I'm trying to get rid of you, but don't give me any problems or I'll paste you to the wall. A good commander, thought Ender, doesn't have to make stupid threats. Bonzo grew annoyed at Ender's silence. Look, you asked me to come out here, now talk. Sir, you were correct not to place me in a tomb. I don't know how to do anything. I don't need you to tell me I'm correct, but I'm going to become a good soldier. I won't screw up your regular drill, but I'm going to practice, and I'm going to practice with the only people who will practice to me, and that's my launchies. You'll do what I tell you, you little bastard. That's right, sir. I'll follow all the orders that you're authorized to give, but free play is free. No assignments can be given. None. By anyone. He could see Bonzo's anger growing hot. Hot anger was bad. Ender's anger was cold, and he could use it. Bonzo's was hot, and so it used him. Sir, I've got my own career to think of. I won't interfere in your trainings or your battles, but I've got to learn sometime. I didn't ask to be put in your army, and you're trying to trade me off. Trying to trade me as soon as you can, but nobody will take me if I don't know anything, will they? Let me learn something, and then you can get rid of me all the sooner and get a soldier you can really use. Bonzo was not such a fool that anger kept him from recognizing good sense when he heard it. Still, he couldn't let go of his anger immediately. While you're in Salamander Army, you'll obey me. If you try to control my free play, I can get you iced. It probably wasn't true, but it was possible. Certainly, sorry, my reading is getting a little bit lost. Certainly, if Ender made a fuss about it, interfering with free play could conceivably get Bonzo removed from command. Also, there was the fact that the officers obviously saw something in Ender, since they had promoted him. Maybe Ender did have influence enough with the teachers to ice somebody. Bastard, said Bonzo. It isn't my fault that you gave me that order in front of everybody. But if you want, I'll pretend you, Ender said. But if you want, I'll pretend you won this argument. Then tomorrow you can tell me you changed your mind. I don't need you to tell me what to do. I don't want the other commandos, other guys to think you back down. You wouldn't be able to command as well. Bonzo hated him for it, for the kindness. Ender tried to understand why. Maybe it seemed to Bonzo as if Ender was granting him his command as a favor. Yelling, and yet he had no choice. No choice about anything. Well, it was Bonzo's own fault for giving Ender an unreasonable order. Still, he would only My man slept. Am I sleeping? I'm not sleeping. It's just like I'm getting lost. Still, he would care only that Ender had beaten him, and then rubbed his. Oh, my eyes. Oh, okay. I'm really sorry. Yeah, it's a bit hard. When I look down at the page like this, it probably means I'm like. Okay. Still, he would care only that Ender had beaten him, and then rubbed his nose in it by being magnanimous. I'll have your ass someday, Bonzo said. Probably, said Ender. The lights out buzzer sounded. Ender walked back into the room, looking dejected. Beaten, angry. The other boys drew the obvious conclusion. The other boys drew the obvious conclusions. And in the morning, as Ender was leaving for breakfast, Bonzo stopped him and spoke loudly. I changed my mind, Prick. Maybe by practicing with your launchies you'll learn something, and I can train you easier. Anything to get rid of you faster. Thank you, sir, Ender said. Anything, whispered Bonzo. I hope you're iced. Ender smiled gratefully and left the room. After breakfast, he practiced with Petra. All afternoon, he watched Bonzo drill and figured out ways to destroy his army. During free play, he and Ally and the others worked themselves to exhaustion. I can do this, thought Ender as he lay in his bed, his muscles throbbing, unknotting themselves. I can handle it. Alright, I'm gonna drink again. My voice is... I'm really sorry for the thing sleeping again. I don't know why it does that. My voice is getting really, really painful now. I really do need vocal training at this point. There we go. Much better. Yeah, there you go. My voice is good now. There you go. Salamander army had a battle 4 days later. Ender followed behind the real soldiers as they jogged along the corridors to the battle room. There were 2 ribbons along the wall, the green brown of Salamander and the black black of Condor. When they came to the place where the battle room had always been, the corridor split instead. We have green brown leading to the left and black black to the right. Around another turn to the right, and the army stopped in front of a blank wall. The Toons followed up in silence. Ender stayed behind them all. Bonzo was giving his instructions. A, take the handles and go up. B, left. C, right. D, down. He saw that the Toons were oriented to follow instructions, and then added, You, Pinprick, wait 4 minutes and come just inside the door. Don't even take your gun off your suit. Ender nodded. Suddenly, the wall behind Bonzo became transparent. Not a wall then, but a force field. The battle room was different too. Huge bomb boxes were suspended in midair, particularly obstructing the view. So these were the obstacles that the soldiers called stars. They were distributed seemingly at random. Bonzo seemed not to care where they were. Apparently, the soldiers already knew to handle the stars. But it soon became clear to Ender as he sat and watched the battle from the corridor that they did not know how to handle the stars. They didn't know how to soft land a one and use it for cover. The tactics of assaulting the enemy's position on a star. It showed no sense at all of which stars matter. They persisted in assaulting stars that could have been bypassed by a wall sliding to a more advanced position. The other commander was taking advantage of Bonzo's neglect of strategy. Condor armies forced the salamanders into costly assaults. Fewer and fewer salamanders were unfrozen for the attack on the next star. It was clear after only 4 minutes that Salamander army could not defeat the enemy by attacking. Ender stepped through the gate. He drifted slightly downward. The battle rooms he had practiced in always had their door at floor level. For real battles, however, the door was set in the middle of the wall, as far from the floor as the ceiling. Abruptly, he felt himself reorient, as he had in the shuttles. What had been down was now up, and what now sideways. In Nullo, there was no reason to stay oriented the way he had been in the corridor. It was impossible to tell, looking at the perfectly square doors, which way had been up. And it didn't matter, for now Ender had found the orientation that made sense. The enemy's gate was down. The objective of the game was to fall towards the enemy's home. Oh, okay, so that's where the line came from. Ender made the motions that oriented himself in his new directions. Instead of being spread out, his whole body presented to the enemy. Now Ender's leg pointed towards them. He was a much smaller target. Someone saw him. He was, after all, drifting aimlessly in the open. Instinctively, he pulled his legs up under him. At that moment, he was flash, and the legs of his suit froze in position. His arms remained unfrozen, for without a direct body hit, only the limbs that were shot froze up. It occurred to the enemy that if he had not been presenting his legs to the enemy, it would have been his body they hit. He would have been immobilized. Since Bonzo had ordered him not to draw his gun, his weapon Ender continued to drift, not moving his head or arms, as if they had been frozen too. The enemy ignored him and concentrated their fire on the soldiers who were firing at them. It was a bitter battle. Outnumbered now, Salamander army gave ground stubbornly. The battle disintegrated into a dozen individual shootouts. Bonzo's discipline paid off for now, for each Salamander who froze took at least one enemy with him. No one ran or panicked. Everyone remained calm and aimed peacefully. Petra was especially deadly. Condor army noticed it and took effort to freeze her. They froze her shooting arm first, and the stream of curses was only interrupted when they froze her completely. The camera just went up a little bit. Was only interrupted when they froze her completely and the helmet clamped down on her jaw. In a few minutes, it was over. Salamander army offered no more resistance. Ender noted with pleasure that Condor could only muster the minimum 5 soldiers necessary to open the gate to victory. 4 of them touched their helmets to the lighted spots at the 4 corners of Salamander's door, while the 5th passed through the force field. That ended the game. The lights came back on to their full brightness, and Anderson came out of the teacher's door. I could have drawn my gun, thought Ender, as the enemy approached the door. I could have drawn my gun and shot just one of them, and they would have been too few. The game would have been a draw. Without 4 men to touch the 4 corners and a 5th man to pass through the gate, Kondo would have no victory. Bonzo, you ass! I could have saved you from the defeat. Maybe even turned it to a victory, since they were just sitting there, easy targets, and they wouldn't have known at first where the shots were coming from. I'm a good enough shot for that. But orders were orders, and Ender had promised to obey. He did get some satisfaction out of the fact that on the official tally Salamander army recorded, not the expected 41 disabled or eliminated, but rather 40 eliminated and 1 damaged. Bonzo couldn't understand it until he consulted Anderson's book and realized who it was. I was only damaged, Bonzo, thought Ender. I could still shoot. He expected Bonzo to come to him and said, next time when it's like that, you can shoot. But Bonzo didn't say anything to him at all until the next morning after breakfast. Of course, Bonzo ate in the commander's mess. But Ender was pretty sure the odd score would cause a stir there as much stir there as it did in the soldiers' dining hall. In every other game that wasn't a draw, every member of the losing team was either eliminated, totally frozen, or disabled, which meant they had some body parts still unfrozen, but were unable to shoot or inflict damage on the enemy. Salamander was the only losing man with 1 man in losing army with 1 man in the damaged but active category. Ender volunteered no explanation, but the other members of Salamander army let it be known why it had happened. And when the other boys asked him why he hadn't disobeyed orders and fired, he calmly answered, I obey orders. After breakfast, Bonzo looked for him. The order still stands, he said, and don't you forget it. It will cost you, you fool. I may not be a good soldier, but I can still help and there's no reason you shouldn't let me. Ender said nothing. An interesting side effect of the battle was that Ender emerged at the top of the soldier efficiency list. Since he hadn't fired a shot, he had a perfect record on shooting, no misses at all. And since he had never been eliminated or disabled, his percentage there was excellent. No one else came close. It made a lot of boys laugh. and the others were angry. But on the prize efficiency list, Ender was now the leader. He kept setting out the army practice sessions and kept working hard on his own, with Petra in the mornings and his friends at nights. More launchies were joining them now, not on a lark, but they could see results, because they could see results. They were getting better and better. Allies stayed ahead of them though. In part, it was because Ally kept trying new things, which forced Ender to think of new tactics to cope with them. In part, it was because they kept making stupid mistakes, which suggested things to do that no self-respecting, well-trained soldiers would have even tried. Many of the things they attempted turned out to be useless, but it was always fun, always exciting, and enough things worked that they knew it was helping them. Evening was the best time of the day. The next two battles were easy salamander victories. Ender came in after 4 minutes and remained untouched by the defeated enemy. Ender began to realize that Condor army, which had beaten them, was unusually good. Salamander, weak as Bonzo's grapple strategy as might be, was one of the better teams, climbing steadily in the ratings, clawing for 4th place with Rat Army. Ender turned 7. They weren't much for dates and calendars at the Salamander at the battle school, but Ender had found how to bring up the date on his desk, and he noticed his birthday. The school noticed it too. They took his measurements and issued him a new salamander uniform and a new flash suit for the battle room. He went back to the barracks with the new clothing on. It felt strange and loose, like his skin no longer fit properly. He wanted to stop at Petra's bunk and tell her about his home, about what his birthdays were usually like. Just to tell her it was his birthday, so she'd say something about it being a happy one. But no one told birthdays. It was childish. It was what landsiders did. Cakes and silly customs. Valentine had baked him his cake on his 6th birthday. It fell and it was terrible. No one knew how to cook anymore. It was the kind of crazy things Valentine would do. Everybody teased Valentine about it, but Ender saved a little bit of it in his cupboard. Then they took out his monitor and he left, and for all he knew, it was still there, a little piece of greasy yellow dust. Nobody talked about home, not among the soldiers. There had been no life before battle school. Nobody got letters, and nobody wrote any. Everybody pretended that they didn't care. But I do care, thought Ender. The only reason I'm here is so that a bugger won't shoot up Valentine's eye, won't blast her head open like the soldiers in the videos of the first battles with the buggers, won't split her head with a beam so hot that her brains burst the skull and spill out like rising bread dough, the way it happens in my worst nightmares, in my worst nights, when I wake up trembling but silent. Must keep silent, or they'll hear that I miss my family, that I want to go home. It was better in the morning. Home was merely a dull ache in the back of his memory, a tiredness in his eyes. That morning came in as they were dressing. Flash shoots, he called. It was a battle, Ender's 4th game. The enemy was Leopard Army. It would be easy. Leopard was new, and it was always in the bottom quarter in the standings. It had been organized only 6 months ago, with Paul Slattery as its new commander. Ender pulled on his new battle suit and got into line. Bonzo pulled him roughly out of line and made him march at the end. "You didn't need to do that," Ender said sullenly. "You could have let me stay in line." Ender watched from the corridor. Paul Slattery was young, but he was sharp. He had some new ideas. He kept his soldiers moving, darting from star to star, while sliding the gap behind and above the stolid salamanders. Ender smiled. Bonzo was hopelessly confused, and so was his men. Is my eyes closing again? I think it is. Leopard seemed to have men in every direction. However, the battle was not as lopsided as it seemed. Ender noticed that Leopard was losing a lot of men too. Their reckless tactics had exposed them too much. What mattered, however, that Salamander felt defeated. They had surrendered the initiative completely. Though they were still fairly evenly matched with the enemy, they huddled together like the last survivors of a massacre, as if they hoped the enemy would overlook them in the carnage. Ender slipped slowly through the gate, oriented himself towards the enemy so that the enemy gate was down, and drifted slowly towards to a corner where he wouldn't be noticed. He even fired at his own legs to hold them in kneeling position that offered him the best protection. He looked to any casual glance like another frozen soldier who had drifted helplessly out of battle. With Salamander army waiting objectively for destruction, Leopard obligingly destroyed them. When Salamanders finally stopped firing, Leopard had 9 boys left. They had formed up and started to open the Salamander gate. Ender aimed carefully with a straight arm, as Petra had caught him. Before anyone knew what was happening, he froze 3 of the soldiers who were about to press their helmets against the lighted corners of the door. Then some of the others only spotted him and fired, but at first they hit only his frozen legs. It gave him time to get the last 2 men at the gate. Leopard had only 4 men left unfrozen when Ender was finally hit in the arm and disabled. The game was a draw, and they never hit him in the body. Paul Slattery was furious, but there had been nothing unfair about it. Everyone in Leopard army assumed it had been a strategy of Bonzo's to leave a man to the last minute. It didn't occur to them that little Ender had fired against orders. But Salamander army knew. Bonzo knew. And Ender could see from the way his commander looked at him that Bonzo hated him for rescuing him from total defeat. I don't care, Ender told himself. It will just make me easier to trade away. And in the meantime, you won't drop so far in the standings. Just trade me. I've learned all that I'm ever going to learn from you. How to fail with style. That's all you know, Bonzer. What have I learned so far? What have I learned so far? Ender listed things in his mind as he undressed by his bunk. Wait, hold on. The enemy's gate is down. Use my legs as a shield in battle. A small reserve held back until the end of the game can be decisive, and soldiers can make decisions that are smarter than the orders they've been given. Naked, he was about to climb into bed when Bonzo came toward him, his face hard and set. I have seen Peter like this, thought Ender, silent with murder in his eye. But Bonzo is not Peter. Bonzo has more fear. Wigan, I finally traded you. I was able to persuade Rat Army that your incredible place on the efficiency list is more than an accident. You go over there tomorrow. Thank you, sir. Ender said. Perhaps he sounded too grateful. Suddenly, Bonzo swung at him, caught his jaw with a vicious open-handed slap. It knocked Ender sideways into his bunk, and he almost fell. Then Bonzo slugged him hard in the stomach. Ender dropped to his knees. You disobeyed me, Bonzo said loudly for all to hear. No good soldier ever disobeys. Even as he cried from the pain, Ender could not help but take vengeful pleasure in the murmurs he heard rising through the barracks. You fool, Bonzo. You aren't just forcing discipline, you're destroying it. They know I turned a defeat into a draw, and now they see how you repay me. You made yourself look stupid in front of everybody and everyone. What is your discipline worth now? And the next day, Ender told Petra that for her sake, the shooting practice in the morning will have to end. Bonzo didn't need anything that looked like the challenge now, and so she better stay clear of Ender for a while. She understood perfectly. Besides, she said, you're as close as to being a good shot as you'll ever be. He left his desk and flashed through in the locker. He would wear his salamander uniform until he could get to the commissary and change it for the brown and black of Rat. He had brought no possessions with him. He would take none away. There were none to have. Everything of value was in the school computer or his own head and hands. He used one of the public desks in the game room to register for an Earth Gravity personal combat course during the hour immediately after breakfast. He didn't plan to get vengeance on Bonzo for hitting him, but he did intend that no one would be able to do that to him again. Hello everybody. It is now the end of Salamander. Oh my goodness. I think these chapters are getting super long, so every stream is gonna be like, you know, just us. Oh, my head feels very lightheaded actually. Oh my goodness, this is so embarrassing. So yes, Hi. The last chapter was long. I don't even know what to process from it. Like, really? Sorry for the eye closing thing. It was just kind of something that just happens when I'm reading a book, because I'm not staring at the screen, I'm staring at the book, so my eyes just close normally. If you're new to the channel, Akate knows about this. So yeah, there's a lot to take in, a lot to know, and surprisingly, all the insights that Ender has gained from this chapter, I guess if you, it can apply to anywhere. Be efficient, be professional, but always be flexible. Never professionally rigid to the point where there is no change at all. So yes, I would like to say this is actually so far one of the better chapters, because it's long, but it has a purpose. Everything has a purpose. As you can see, there's like a lot of movement. So I want to take notes from this for my own personal writing. And if you guys are interested in writing like you are, Akate, you can also use it to, you know, push on and find out how to make your stories move with grace. And with that, personally, I think Ender, with that slug at the end, I feel pity for the poor dude. He just gets like wasted every time. He always gets bullied, man, and that hurts me a lot. Yeah. So with that, I guess that's, yeah, I'm feeling a little feverish lately. I'm okay. Yeah. No, I opened the window and I feel kind of cold. Maybe it's just the sleep deprivation just kicking in. Anyway, yeah. What else? What do you guys think of the chapter so far? I think I'm just gonna stop it here because I feel like Rat Army is gonna be even longer. And yeah, you know what? If it's longer, I don't mind, because you know, it's a fun little book, and you can read this in your spare time. I don't know if it's available free online, but I would like to say that you guys can go buy the book and it'll be really good. My brain just kind of shut down already. Mostly because my voice, I think my brain is actually tied to my voice. So right, my brain is tied to how well my body feels. So if my throat is not feeling too good, I actually tend to space out, and you can kind of tell. So yeah, it's now 4:21 p.m. So I guess I can turn off this music now. Give me a second. I'll turn off this music and I'll turn on the chatting music. Unfortunately, this is not like unfortunately we can't do something like what's it called, War of the Worlds, where we can read multiple chapters a week. Unfortunately, because this book's individual chapters is very, very long. So yeah, I'm gonna have to I don't know. It depends on how long Rat is. If Rat is very long, no, please don't let Arthur not hear this. If chapter Rat is very long, I will just probably do one chapter a week, and it'll be slow, but it's a slow grind. This book is fairly thicker than War of the Worlds, and the content, while it moves not breakneck, but moves quite fluidly and quickly, there's gonna be a lot to cover as well. And basically, like I said, if you're interested, go look for the book and buy it for yourself. And yeah, you may learn a lot of things, like reading this chapter with Ender's knowledge about how he's analyzing people. It's actually very fascinating, because you can have people like in, let's say, like for example, Arma. I prefer rigidness, right? But you know what? I think I can take this to heart and say, if there is something that I can have my squad mate do on his own, have him do that duty with autonomy. I shouldn't just have everyone shuffling around. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a lot of lesson for me to learn as well, because I did read the book thoroughly, but I just need a refresher course. And what Ender observes is something that I wish I can try and observe in that same situation. I wouldn't be able to catch it because I'll probably be busy doing my own stuff, but yeah, by observing the failures of your own side, it's actually very interesting how you can use it to, it's how interesting you can use it to, analyze everyone else instead. They just do the same patterns or not. So yes, All right. So let me see him. Let me see here. Okay, so for today's stream, I don't really have anything else to say. That's actually it from me today, and I don't really have anything else to say. This is the third stream of this week, which means I will no longer be streaming. So if you guys want to talk to me, you can join my Discord in the description below. And if you want to leave feedback for my scuff reading streams, you can also do so in the forum below. I'm just gonna say this very obligatory. So now I have free time to talk. I got my curve monitor, so I'm feeling really happy that it's here. So yes. Yeah, it's pretty good having my curve monitor bag and seeing things in like full color. It looks really freaking good. Other than that, my internship, I'm waiting for that email, but an internship offer email. So yeah, your boy here gonna be working real soon, don't you worry. In other news, my dog has yeah, I don't really know what to talk about because I guess you guys are pretty tired or you're still at work. I know you are at work, Akate. Don't, like I said, Akate, don't text and drive. Stream's ending soon. If you do that, I'm gonna have to, like a bonk. I'm gonna have to bonk you. Yeah. That goes for every one of you, okay? If you text while driving, I'm going to bonk you. Like, I'm gonna bonk you real bad. I'm gonna really bonk you. I'm gonna bonk you really badly. Really badly. Anyway, with that, I guess I can conclude today's stream. I hope you guys enjoyed this reading of Endless Game. Like I said, the book is a very worthwhile read if you're interested in reading it for yourself instead of having to listen to my very we're not very uncomfortable, very scuffed voice, very hurt voice. You guys can just buy the book online or, at a bookstore if those even still exist. And with that, I can kind of leave you guys to it. Glory be a day, mercs. I hope you guys have a good evening, and I hope you guys have fun with whatever you're doing. And work, good luck to you guys. I'll see you guys soon or this weekend. I don't know. Bye bye.